All right, so I will definitely put this first from now on, covering the 12-team playoff bracket. And if you want to hear my breakdown of the top 25, yeah, feel free to stick around after this for that. But people are here. Some people might be here just to see how the bracketing is currently playing out. As far as number one, Texas moves back to the number one spot. Number one, AP. There you go. Number two, Ohio State stays put. They have not moved from that spot, I don't think, all year. There you go. Number three is Miami. Miami sitting there at 6. Number 4, Iowa State down here at 11. That is your first round buys currently. Number 5 is Oregon. They have moved up steadily throughout the year. Oregon is now 5. Penn State is now 6, so we are seeing that jump up for those Big Ten teams because there's been some pretty big losses for the SEC teams over the past couple of weeks, especially this past weekend. There you go, Penn State. Georgia is now number 7, which that's what they were last week. 8 is Alabama. That's where Alabama falls to. Vanderbilt feeling proud of themselves, knocking Alabama out of the 1 spot. You also now have Tennessee. I don't know why I said Tennessee. Tennessee. I'm from the South. I'm dyslexic. I know. Tennessee at number 9 spot. And then you got Ole Miss sitting there in the 10 spot. And then Clemson is now making it in the top 12. Sitting there at 11. They actually round out the Power 4 with Boise State getting the group of 5 spot. There you go. So that's the way the current playoff bracket looks. Boise State still sitting there at 12. So, obviously we had some big-time shakeups with some huge, crazy losses for the college football playoff. But that is how the breakdown is for now. For whatever week this is, 6. We're on week 6. There you go. So, there you go. That is how it currently looks. All right. Texas moved up a slot. Doesn't really matter because they didn't play. Ohio State did play. Who'd they play? I forget who they played. Iowa. And yeah, it's Iowa. You have an offense, you're going to beat Iowa. All right. Oregon. They did play Michigan State. Beat Michigan State. Not really so much to say there because these two teams are going to play this next weekend, and this is going to be their first real test for both of those teams. So, yeah, this is a big measuring stick game for both of those teams because neither one of them played really anybody. So, there you go. Ohio State, Oregon. We're going to find out what y'all are about this next Saturday. Penn State. They've gotten an okay win against Illinois, UCLA. Yeah, West Virginia. You can say West Virginia also, but yeah. They haven't played like a top 15 team. So we'll find out about Penn State eventually down the line. Georgia, they had a little bounce back against Auburn. Yeah, Auburn coming from the Alabama loss. They bounced back a little bit. Miami went out to Cal and all the way across the country and got the win by a point, 39-38. A lot of people probably didn't see that game because, well, it was so late at night. But they did get the win against Cal. Anyways, Miami got that dub late, and it might have been Sunday morning, honestly, when they got the win. They play those late games out there in the West Coast. Not to say Miami looked super impressive. They did have the frantic comeback at the end, but they did win going across country. Game day was there. Other than that, Miami's not really hurting on any kind of competition throughout the season. They're going to have a couple of games that could be somewhat difficult, but they're going to be they're probably heavily favored for the rest of the year. I think they will play Clemson, and if they don't on their schedule, they will the ACC championship game. So Alabama. Ooh, man. Dang. Dude, that Vandy game was crazy. I missed the first quarter. Dude, Alabama's playing Vandy. Alabama #1. I wasn't tuning into that ass stomping. But after that first quarter, I was like, oh, interesting. Let me just kind of watch this a little bit. And I would say I was very impressed by Anchor Down. Anchor Down was not just winning the game, they were controlling big parts of that game. They were doing work. It wasn't like they were moving Alabama off the ball on both sides. It was very impressive. The Alabama was starting to get it rolling. They were starting to make the comeback. They were starting to keep, Vandy out of the end zone, stop getting them touchdowns. And that's what you need, right? When you're on the comeback, you cannot let the other team get touchdowns. Field goals or punts, okay. But they were making that comeback. And this is when I knew Alabama was in trouble. This was the point in the game I knew Alabama was in major, major trouble. They had just passed midfield in the fourth quarter at about the 9.5 mark. Vandy, D-end, comes around the edge, gets around the tackle, strip, sack, fumble, recovery. Vandy goes down and gets a touchdown. Not on the same play, after the recovery, they go down, they get that touchdown. When they got that strip, sack, fumble, I was like, ooh, that was a big deal because we got 9.5 left. And you're thinking if Vandy could put together a 3-4 minute drive and get a touchdown out of this, that would almost basically cinch it for Vandy, right? Because you're going to get 2 scores in a matter of maybe, whatever time was left, like 5.5, 6 minutes. And so they did go down. They got the touchdown. That really put Alabama behind. Alabama then goes down, gets the touchdown, but not able to then stop Vandy in the last 2.5 minutes, 2 minutes. And that was the thing, is like Vandy was just kind of pushing Alabama around. And that's crazy to say that Vandy was very competitive at the line of scrimmage. That is crazy. Crazy to say that. Like, there's no excuse for Vandy to be pushing with Alabama at all. Like, that should have been the one thing. Like, okay, you get some crazy trick plays, you get some fluke plays, okay, but there should be none of the Vandy's pushing you around kind of at the line of scrimmage. They were basically running like a quadruple option kind of offense. I think their quarterback only had one incompletion, but yeah, that fumble at the 9:30 mark, that was a huge deal because Alabama kind of had the momentum at that point in time. They were coming back. If they would have scored a touchdown on that drive, they would have been ahead. And then Vandy gets that strip sack. They get the recovery, and then they go down the preceding possession, get that touchdown. And that was absolutely amazing. And it was crazy to see the stands because it was like 70, 75% Crimson. And Vandy stormed the field with all like 200 fans they had in the stands. They'd tear down the goalpost, they'd take it down, they'd throw it in the river, which is like a 3-mile walk, I guess, from the stadium to the river. That was really cool, man. Social media was pretty cool to see that. Anyways, Alabama. That's going to be a tough one for the committee to really look at the end of the year is Alabama. Because that loss at Vandy was nuts. And I really hope the coach for Vandy, he just kind of walked into that locker room after and said, hey, I'll see you guys at practice or whatever the next team meeting is, whether it's Sunday or Monday. Because it's like those kids should live in that moment, not even realizing that will be something that they will get recognized for the rest of their life. They will be called back to Vandy in 5, 10, 20, 30, 50 years to be recognized for what they did. They had never beat a top 5 team, and they had lost like 23 straight to Alabama. And they got the win, not even just against a top 5 team, but a number 1 team. And Alabama looked really good the week before against Georgia. So, yeah, I really hope coaches just kind of let them have that moment because I don't even think the kids even realize how much what they actually kind of did. Anyways, moving on, Alabama. Poof. Ah, man, crazy. Tennessee. Woo. Tennessee. Definitely for how much people have talked about the explosiveness on the offense and stuff like that. They got stranglehold by Arkansas. They had the boa constrictor out. So yeah, Arkansas put it on them. The defense. Tennessee had 0 points by halftime, and they could not do anything really against Arkansas. They got 2 touchdowns by the end of the game. I think they wound up losing 16-14. But that it was I think Arkansas really kind of showed how, I'd say vulnerable, but not really vulnerable, but just how to kind of beat Tennessee's offense maybe. That was a very impressive kind of game, and that was the game that Arkansas needed. That was the kind of game Arkansas needed to win against Tennessee. Very impressive. Tennessee going down, man. Another SEC team. I'm really glad my Longhorns had the week off, but whew, that was some brutal beatdowns or losses, and shocking losses by some teams that hadn't lost before, especially some top tier SEC teams. Ole Miss, I don't really know if they even played or if it even mattered. South Carolina, that's right. Yeah. It didn't matter. I remember seeing that game on now. Yeah, Ole Miss didn't really struggle too much. Definitely just did not let South Carolina do anything on offense. Clemson has started to have the revival after the Georgia game. A lot of people thought that they were dead. Oh man, look, Clemson couldn't do anything against Georgia. And by the way, that was Georgia's best game of the year. By far was game 1. Ever since then, Georgia kind of spinning wheels here, but they crushed Florida State. Everybody's crushing Florida State this year. So not like a huge win, but there you go. Clemson getting the W. It seems like there's probably nothing between them and Miami kind of owning the ACC this year. Iowa State, sleepy undefeated. I've been very much said this before. I don't know anybody that plays on Iowa State, any other top talent or anything like that. But the one thing I'll say is I've been a big fan of their head coach. I'm really surprised he has not gotten hired at a bigger program. I think he runs a very good team. His teams almost never beat themselves. They are always disciplined, and they're always in it. And right now, Iowa State looking like obviously the clear front runner for the Big 12. Who did they play this past week? Baylor. But Iowa State obviously you're going to have not a cupcake schedule. Some of these teams in here are going to be somewhat difficult, but they're going to get Utah, Kansas State, and then the Big 12 championship game. So 3 games at the end of the year are going to be tough for Iowa State there to see if they win the Big 12. There you go. Notre Dame. So yeah, Notre Dame was off. Stanford is this next week. You are going to be hosting Stanford. And there you go. Notre Dame doesn't have anybody tough all the rest of the way, except for Navy and Army, who are both undefeated. USC, who started off really good, has now been faltering, but still that's going to be a rivalry game. Anyways, Notre Dame off this week. BYU was also off. Not a big deal. Texas A&M. They got a huge win. And over Missouri, we'll talk about Missouri when we get there. But Texas A&M, if you watch that game, that was another big upset over the weekend. You're thinking Texas A&M is like a top 10 team, like top 5 team, top 10 team, something like that. A&M controlled every aspect of that game. I have been not exactly high on Connor Wigman and thought Reed should stay in there because, he did okay. Not the best of throwers there. But it provided a little bit more mobility than Wigman. anyways, watching that game, Wigman was out there dicing. Like, it was crazy to see him out there throwing because he's never shown that. And I talked to my aunt, who's, aunt and cousins, half of my family is like big time Aggies, and they were loving it. They've never seen this from Wigman. And I would have to agree. Like, I was like, where'd this fool come from? Like, maybe a couple weeks off, like, cleared his head or something. But he, they came out and dominated that game. They dominated at the line of scrimmage. They dominated on defense. They showed Missouri has no run game, and so they were able to play the pass the whole time. Everything was contested. A&M handled Missouri, who was in the top 10. It was an impressive win. If A&M plays like that, they are a top 10 team easily, possibly top 5. That was a very, very impressive game by Texas A&M, especially if Wegman's playing like that. That was really good. I'm thinking now my Texas Longhorns at the end of the year when they play Texas A&M in College Station. I don't know if that's going to be a cupcake win now. I think that's going to be a really interesting, tough game. For how balanced and impressive Texas A&M looked. They look really good. They look really good. So Utah was off. Boise State. Dude, this team is like super sleepy, man. So yeah, Boise State played Utah State, won 62-30. I haven't been able to see Boise State because they play so late. But the one thing I'll say is they have a running back who is crushing stats. He gets like over 200 yards a game, and I think by halftime of this past week, he had like over 150. I think by halftime, maybe 130 by halftime. It was crazy. Like, it's nuts. Like the things that he's doing, that Boise State's doing. So, yeah, they're looking pretty good. Probably going to be that 12 seed or at least the seed, for the group of 5. Anyways, Indiana. Still undefeated, but hasn't played anybody. So, I get it. Indiana's undefeated, looking pretty good. They're going to get a test here in Nebraska this in like 2 weeks. It's not this coming week. It's in 2 weeks. So, that'll be a game there for Illinois. And after that, then they got kind of a tough schedule here the back half of the year. Find out about the Hoosiers, but yeah, Indiana looking pretty good. I think it's the best start that they've had since like 1950s or something like that. Oklahoma, I think they were off. Yeah, they were also off. They'll be playing my Texas Longhorns this next week. Should be a good one. It's always a good one between them. Kansas State was off and not play anybody, and then Missouri. Dude, that Texas A&M made them look so bad. Like they couldn't do much. That's probably a correct ranking for them. like they're probably gonna have a lot of teams that they just can outspeed and stuff, but they just could not control against Texas A&M. They couldn't control the line of scrimmage. They can control a lot of things. So Missouri looked very. I'm not even gonna say average. They just look pathetic. They look really bad. Pittsburgh. So Pittsburgh did play North Carolina. They did get the dub. They are undefeated. They will have Cal this next week. And then they will get SMU in November, Clemson in November, Louisville in November. So they're going to have some pretty tough ones there. They will have some tough games there in November. We'll find out what Pittsburgh is all about. And then we got Illinois. Anyways, Illinois was off, but they're going to get Purdue, Michigan, and Oregon coming up. That's a pretty tough stretch there. Yeah, that's a tough stretch there. And then you got Michigan, who lost again to, who did they lose to? Washington, that's right. Oh, yeah, it was the rematch of the national championship game. Obviously not even close because the teams have been absolutely gutted with talent. A lot of them gone pro. Washington obviously lost their head coach as well to Alabama. But there you go. Michigan getting that big old fat L to Washington. And yeah, not surprised, but also kind of surprised. A lot of the reasons why I'm kind of surprised is you should be able to at least play bully ball. But They are very one-dimensional. They don't really have much of the offensive side of the ball that's well-rounded. Yeah, anyways, Michigan going down. SMU starting to make its way into the top conversation for the ACC. Getting the dub over Louisville. I was kind of shocked to see that outcome. I was watching a little bit of that, but they were both even killed. I think it was basically tied, like right there towards the end of the game. And then SMU kind of just got a touchdown right there at the end of the game. But it was that was a close game. That was a really close game. And yeah, I mean they got a pretty manageable schedule going forward. SMU could be also in contention for that ACC championship game. Their next toughest schedule right now is looking like Pitt. Duke's not going to be an easy. They're not going to be an easy W either. And then they'll get Cal at home. So you got to go to Duke, and then you got Pitt. There's a couple games there for SMU.